Good evening, viewers. You're watching Sansad Television, and this is the news with me, Rashika Gangwani. In the next 30 minutes, we'll take you through the day's top national and international stories. But first up, the top headlines of the day. Prime Minister Modi calls for use of local languages in courts, urges repeal of old and obsolete laws for easy dispensation of justice. Chief Justice of India expresses concern over filing of frivolous petitions, says public interest litigation has become personal interest litigation. Coal production increases 27% in April due to rising demand. Union Coal Minister says country has sufficient stocks. Rail services cancelled only in routes with less passengers. Heatwave breaks 122-year record in India. Mercury crosses 44 degrees Celsius in many parts of northwestern and central India. Yellow alert issued for the next 2 days. Ukrainian soldiers prevent advance of Russian forces in south and east. Russian bombardment continues in many cities. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov claims 1 million people evacuated from Ukraine. Now a look at some important news in our flash segment. ED seizes rupees 5,551 crore of Chinese company Xiaomi India under FEMA law. CCEA approves Star 9 Mobility Private Limited's bid for sale of entire 51% of government shareholding of Pawan Hans Limited. Former judges, army veterans slam open letter against Prime Minister. Tell critics not to give ideology cover to anti-national outlook. Khadi and Village Industries Commission exceeds turnover of rupees 1 lakh crore in 2021-22. Over 60% of youngsters in the age group of 12 to 14 received their first dose of COVID vaccine, says Health Minister. Minorities Commission seeks detailed report from Punjab government on Patiala clashes. Karnataka government introduces new online system for referral of patients to tertiary healthcare facilities. Kerala schools to reopen on 1st of June after the summer vacation. First solar eclipse of 2022 to start at 12:15 a.m. tonight will coincide with celestial phenomenon of the black moon, visible in South America, Pacific and Atlantic Oceans and Antarctica. Ravindra Jadeja hands over CSK captaincy back to MS Dhoni. Jadeja says more will help him to focus more on his game. Prime Minister Modi on Saturday stressed the need to use local languages in courts. He said this will strengthen the faith and confidence of common citizens in the judicial system and make them feel more connected to it. The Prime Minister was addressing a joint conference of Chief Ministers and Chief Justices of High Courts. He also appealed to the Chief Ministers to repeal the old laws to make the delivery of justice easier.
बड़ी आबादी को न्यायिक प्रक्रिया से लेकर फैसलों तक को समझना मुश्किल होता है। हमें इस व्यवस्था को सरल और आम जनता के लिए ग्राह्य बनाने की जरूरत है। हमें कोर्ट्स में स्थानीय भाषाओं को प्रोत्साहन देने की जरूरत है। इससे देश के सामान्य नागरिकों का न्याय प्रणाली में भरोसा बढ़ेगा, वो उससे जुड़ा हुआ महसूस करेगा।
In his address on the occasion, Chief Justice N.V. Ramana said the Constitution provides for the separation of powers among the three organs of the state, and the Lakshman Rekha should be kept in mind while performing one's duty. He also asserted that deliberate inaction by governments despite judicial directions is not good for the health of the democracy. Expresses concern over the misuse of PILs, the CGI said that it has now become a private interest litigation and is used to dispose of private matters.
Another important aspect of Indianization is inclusivity. The judiciary, as well as every other institution of our democracy, must mirror the social and geographical diversity of the country. I am receiving many representations for introducing local languages in the proceedings before the High Court. I think the time has come now to revisit the demand and take to its logical conclusion.
The Indian Meteorological Department said the current heat wave spell will persist over northwest and central India till the 2nd of May. The 7-day projection shows temperatures won't go down below 40 till at least 5th of May.
An orange alert or a severe heat alert was issued for Haryana, Punjab, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand and the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra on Saturday. Uttar Pradesh Prayagraj recorded a maximum temperature of 47 degrees Celsius, the city's highest for April in over 20 years. A heat wave is declared when an area logs a maximum temperature of 45 degrees Celsius. A severe heat wave is temperatures crossing the 47-degree mark. Amidst rising heat and growing power demand, the Delhi government on Thursday warned of a possible setback in providing uninterrupted electricity supply for critical services in the capital, including metro trains and hospitals. During May, above normal maximum temperatures are likely over most parts of west central and northwest India and northern parts of northeast India. Normal to below normal maximum temperatures are likely over the remaining parts of the country. The IMD says the heat wave could lead to moderate health concerns for vulnerable people, infants, elderly people and those with chronic diseases. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
The Ministry of Coal has asserted that the nation has sufficient reserves of coal. The ministry says Coal India Limited has 5 crore 67 lakh metric tons and the Singareni Collieries Company 43 lakh metric tons of coal. The ministry further stated that captive coal blocks have 23 lakh metric tons of coal. The government cancelled several passenger trains in the different parts of the country to meet the demand for thermal power plants. It said the train services were cancelled only on routes that have lesser passengers.
In UPS, 10 years, after 10 years old, their supply was 566 million tons. Today we are supplying 818 million tons that we are supplying today, coal. And since demand has increased, we are already all concerned departments to power, coal and Ministry of Railways put together. We are trying to expedite the transportation also.
General Manoj Pandey on Saturday assumed charge as the new Chief of Army Staff. He replaces General Manoj Mukund Narwane. General Pandey is the 29th Army Chief and the first officer from the Engineering Corps to get this opportunity. An alumnus of the National Defence Academy, General Pandey was inducted into the Corps of Engineers in December 1982. Lieutenant General Manoj Pandey commanded an engineer regiment during Operation Parakram in the Palanwala sector along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir. In a 39-year span, General Pandey commanded an engineer brigade in the Western Theatre, an infantry brigade along the line of control, a mountain division in the Ladakh sector, and a corps in the northeast. India is likely to take 13 years to overcome the losses incurred due to the COVID-19 pandemic, said the RBI in its report. The central bank says output losses have been worked out to rupees 19.1 lakh crore for 2020-21, rupees 17.1 lakh crore for 2021-22, and 16.4 lakh rupees crore for 2022-23. Taking the actual growth rate of -6.6% for 2020-21, 8.9% for 2021-22, and 7.2% for 2022-23, and 7.5% for the year that follow. India is expected to overcome its COVID-19 losses in 2034-35. The report also warns that the pandemic is not yet over. A fresh wave of COVID has hit China, South Korea and several parts of Europe. And now a look at what is making news across the nation. Prime Minister Modi will leave on a 3-day visit to Germany, Denmark and France on the 2nd of May. He will take part in 25 programs, including bilateral and multilateral meetings with 8 leaders of 7 countries. The Prime Minister is also interacting with 50 global businessmen during the visit. This will be Prime Minister Modi's first foreign visit this year. Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia held discussions with the heads of American aviation companies on strengthening cooperation with the Indian aviation industry. Emerging opportunities in regional connectivity and urban air transportation in India were discussed at the roundtable meeting organized by the US-India Business Council. The CBI conducted searches at 8 premises in Mumbai and Pune, belonging to some prominent builders, including Ashwini Bhosle, Shahid Balwa and Vinod Goenka in the DHFL Yes Bank corruption case. The probe agency suspects these companies were used to divert illicit money involved in the Yes Bank DHFL loan case. Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan inaugurated 108 Sanjeevani ambulance and Janni Express in the integrated referral transport system in Bhopal. He called the new ambulance a campaign to save lives. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin on Saturday announced an ex gratia of ₹5 lakh to the family of the person killed in the Rath Yatra incident at Nagapattinam district. Voting will be held on May 5th to elect the 25-member council of Mara people in Sihar district of South Mizoram. The ruling Mizo National Front has fielded candidates on all seats. The BJP is currently in power in the council and has fielded its candidates in 24 seats. Congress has declared candidates for 23 seats. The Punjab government restored mobile internet and SMS services in Patiala, a day after clashes broke out between the two groups. The government transferred the Inspector General of Police, Patiala Range, Senior Superintendent of Police and Superintendent of Police Patiala with immediate effect. We'll take a short break here, and on the other side, opposition parties in Sri Lanka confident of proof majority in parliament on no confidence motion.
Barring Navy, Air Force and Army remain on very high alert all the time, and Army is actually eyeball to eyeball. It is most important for India to actually go from credible deterrence, which we have more or less achieved, to a punitive deterrence.
There is no possibility of significant modernization to be carried out because of the large salary and the pension cut. You know, the basics is the doctrinal of today, strategy for tomorrow, and how do you do war fighting.
The need for giving the younger generation a taste of military life under what they call the Tour of Duty program, and to understand what the implications are for the army and for national security. Watch our special presentations in The Defenders only on Sansad TV.
Welcome back to the news. Now let's take a look at all the latest developments from the war front in Ukraine. And in the latest developments of Ukraine-Russia conflict, Ukrainian President Zelensky has accused Russia of trying to destroy the Donbass and all who live there. He said cities and towns of the Donbass will survive only if Ukraine remains standing. He asserted that if Russian troops realize their plans even partially, then they have even artillery and aircraft to turn the entire Donbass into stones. Zelensky claimed that Mariupol, which was one of the most developed cities in the region, is now a Russian concentration camp among the ruins. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov dismissed the need for the UN to help secure humanitarian corridors out of Ukraine's busy cities. He told a television interviewer in Dubai that humanitarian corridors are being ignored by the Ukrainian ultranationals. Lavrov also accused the West of sabotaging Russia's peace talks with Ukraine. He claimed that negotiations in Istanbul last month had been progressing on the issues of Russian territorial claims and security guarantees until Ukrainian diplomats backtracked at the behest of the West. The British military believes Russian forces in Ukraine are suffering from weakened morale. The British Defence Ministry made that assertion in a tweet on Saturday, as part of a daily report it provides on Russia's war on Kyiv. It says Russia still faces considerable challenges in fighting. The British military believes Russian forces have been forced to merge and redeploy depleted units from the failed advances in northeast Ukraine. The US claims that the Russian offensive is going much slower than planned, in part because of the strength of the Ukrainian resistance. Officials say that Russians are at least several days behind where they wanted to be, as they try to encircle Ukrainian troops in the east. Russian troops are trying to move north out of Mariupol in order to advance on Ukrainian forces from the south, but their progress has been slow and uneven. The United Nations has responded to Ukrainian President Zelensky's accusation that Russia was trying to humiliate the organization by raining missiles on Kyiv during a visit by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
On Thursday, Russia attacked Kiev with missiles barely an hour after Antonio Guterres held a press conference with Ukrainian President Zelensky. On Friday, the global body said that United Nations chief does not believe the assault was personal.
Antonio Guterres doesn't see this attack as about him. He sees this as another sign that there are parties who are wanting to continue this war, and we want to keep our push to make sure that the conflict can be ended.
Ukrainian President Zelensky said the missile attack says a lot about Russia's true attitude towards global institutions.
Well, I don't think we have a specific reaction to that comment. The Secretary General, when he was asked by different reporters about the rockets that landed, basically made clear that he saw this as yet another reason why the war should be ended. He took it really as a sign, not of disrespect for him, but for the people of Kiev. And we've also learned, of course, that a journalist was killed in those attacks, and we send our condolences. But clearly, these sorts of attacks need to stop.
A woman journalist working with Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty died in the attack. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now news from other parts of the world. Opposition parties in Sri Lanka are confident that they will prove their majority in parliament next week for the no-confidence motion against the government led by the Rajapaksa family. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has asked the opposition to show the support of 113 lawmakers in the 225-member parliament to form an interim government.
A day after President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was reported to have agreed to replace his elder brother and incumbent Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, a spokesperson for the Prime Minister said the President has not communicated any intent to remove the Prime Minister and a decision will be announced if such a step is taken. President Rajapaksa on Friday extended an invitation to the opposition to form an all-party government comprising all political parties in Parliament to address the economic crisis in the island nation. He reportedly made the offer during a discussion with party leaders and representatives. However, protests are continuing in the country against the Rajapaksa family, with demonstrators holding them responsible for the economic crisis and demanding that they quit politics. President Rajapaksa and his family have dominated nearly every aspect of life in Sri Lanka for almost 20 years. Sri Lanka is currently facing economic turmoil unprecedented since its independence in 1948. The crisis is caused in part by a lack of foreign currency that has hampered the country's ability to pay for imports of staple foods and fuel, leading to acute shortages and very high prices. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And in our World Brief section, the death toll in twin explosions on Friday in northern Afghanistan has gone up to 50. The blast targeted two separate vehicles in Mazar-e-Sharif. Residents said members of the Shiite minority Hazare ethnic group appeared to be the target. The attack was the latest in a series of deadly bombings to rattle Afghanistan. Last week, 33 Shiite worshippers were killed when a bomb ripped through a mosque. The Israeli military on Saturday launched a manhunt in the northern West Bank for a pair of Palestinian attackers who shot and killed a security guard at the entrance of a Jewish settlement. The fresh attack could further fuel tensions that have soared over the past 2 months. A string of Palestinian attacks in Israel and the West Bank have left 15 Israelis dead, while at least 27 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli security forces in recent weeks. Germany summoned Turkey's ambassador in Berlin to protest a life sentence handed to a prominent Turkish civil rights activist and philanthropist by a Turkish court. Western governments have criticized the ruling that found Osman Kavala guilty of attempting to overthrow the government with mass protests in 2013. The court in Istanbul also sentenced 7 other defendants to 18 years in prison, each for aiding the attempt. Venezuela and Turkey signed cooperation agreements on industry, tourism, sports, education, and agriculture and fishing. Turkey is one of the main economic allies of Venezuela that faces tight international sanctions. Turkey said the agreements are part of their position to stand with Venezuela. SpaceX launched 53 Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit from the Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The Falcon 9 rocket lifted off for the 6th liftoff and landing of its first stage booster. The previous Starlink mission conducted on April 21st deployed 53 satellites to bolster internet-providing constellation for SpaceX. For many, cerebral palsy and motor neuron disease sufferers, using a computer can be extremely difficult. A team of researchers at Sydney University has come up with a simple solution: a bracelet with sensors that read subtle arm and hand movements and translate them into usable computer commands.
"20-year-old Aryan Shah has been in a wheelchair his entire life. He was born with cerebral palsy, a disorder that affects a person's ability to move and maintain balance. 17 million worldwide suffer from this disorder. Its severity varies from person to person. 2/3 sufferers find it difficult to move one or both arms, and 50% find speech difficult or impossible. In Shah's case, the physical impairment is severe. Only his right hand has useful mobility, and he can only use one finger to type on a keyboard. Using a computer can be challenging in these conditions. To overcome these difficulties, 2 years ago, a team of engineers at Sydney University's School of Computer Science designed a bracelet with sensors. It picks up the tiniest of movements and vibrations in the carpal tunnel, the part of the wrist that contains the tendons that controls the hand. When fingers are moved, the vibrations are transmitted via Bluetooth to a computer program. The movement patterns are then instantaneously interpreted by machine learning. The bracelet springs are personalized and become extremely sensitive to the user's needs. The whole device itself bypasses the need to put lots of sensors on the fingers and hands, etc., by only using the subtle carpal tunnel movements. So it is less complicated and cumbersome than other devices. There is also no need for users to wait for the device to be manufactured in a factory. They can do it all themselves at home using a simple 3D printer. When well calibrated, the device accurately interprets the user's intentions and can control a computer. Right now, the bracelet is being tested in Sri Lanka and Australia. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now some action news from the world of sports. PV Sindhu had to be satisfied with a bronze at the Asia Badminton Championships after losing in the semi-finals to Japan's Akino Yamaguchi. Sindhu won the first game 21-12. The contest was even in the second game when Sindhu got derailed by an argument with the referee, losing it 19-21. Yamaguchi took the opportunity and controlled the final game, winning it 21-16 and booking a place in the final. Union Sports Minister Anurag Thakur today said a call on India's participation at this year's Asian Games will be taken after receiving feedback from the host nation China, which is striving to bring the outbreak of COVID-19 cases in Shanghai and Beijing under control. Rumors are doing rounds that the Hangzhou Asian Games, scheduled to be held from September 10 to 25th this year, will be postponed due to the pandemic. In the IPL match played today in Mumbai, Gujarat Titans defeated Royal Challengers Bangalore by 6 wickets. RCB put up 170 for the loss of 6 wickets. The out-of-form former India skipper Virat Kohli got some touchback with a half-century. Kohli's innings, however, went in vain as chasing 171 to win Gujarat reached the target with 3 balls to spare. Rahul made 43 not out of 25 balls. World number 7 Casper Ruud was ousted from the Munich Open by Borik van Dijk with the Dutchman on his way to the semi-finals. Van Dijk converted 4 of the 10 breakpoints opportunities he created to walk over the number 2 seed, 7-5-6-1. The number 8 seed will next face Miomir after the Serbian ousted number 4 seed Nicolas of Georgia. Holger Rune, meanwhile, continued his impressive run with a 6-0, 6-2 win over Finland's Emil Rossavuori in just over an hour. Sebastian Korda knocked off number 1 seed Felix Aliassime to reach the Restoril Open semi-finals. The American converted 5 of 11 breakpoint opportunities to defeat the world number 10, 6-2, 6-2. Korda next faces compatriot Francis Tiafoe, who beat Spain's Alejandro Davidovic 7-6, 5-7, 7-5. Before we go, here's a repeat of the headlines. Prime Minister calls for use of local languages in courts, urges repeal of old and absolute laws for easy dispensation of justice. Chief Justice of India N.V. Ramana expresses concern over filing of frivolous petition, says public interest litigation has now become personal interest litigation. Coal production increases 27% in April due to rising demand. Union Coal Minister says country has sufficient stocks. Rail services cancelled only on routes with less passengers. Heat wave in India breaks 122-year record. Mercury crosses 44 degrees Celsius in many parts of northwest and central India. Yellow alert issued for the next 2 days. Ukrainian soldiers prevent advance of Russian forces in south and east. Russian bombardment continues in many cities. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov claims 1 million people evacuated from Ukraine. That's all we have time for in this bulletin. Keep watching Sansad Television for more updates. Good night.